Hi, and welcome to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. Today, we're going to talk about self-imposed failures. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. Happy Monday to you if you are listening to this when it releases. This should kick off what I think is a pretty cool set of podcasts that I've got coming out, mainly having to do a lot with the lessons learned and takeaways from Funnel Hacking Live that I attended this past year, which is the ClickFunnels big live event put on by Russell Brunson and his crew. It was, this is the third one we've been to, and this was definitely by far my favorite of what we've gone to. I think this was number 8 in total of theirs. But it was amazing. The speakers were phenomenal. The instruction was phenomenal. The people and just the whole experiences was great. And plus we got to take the boys with us. Kai and Shay got to come with us and experience that for themselves, which is always pretty amazing and awesome when you get the opportunity to introduce your young children, young teenage children, to just a world outside themselves, a world that, most of us, when we were their age, when we were young kids, did not have the opportunity to see. And thus, the idea and the intent of us taking and investing the money to buy them a ticket and hotel and food and all that kind of stuff is to really open their eyes to what's possible. Not necessarily direct them one way or another, but definitely to broaden their mind and their expectation of what they can expect from life and what they want to go after. So that was kind of the intent of them going, and it didn't disappoint in that sense, because the breadth of speakers that were there, the breadth of knowledge and success that they could see and experience firsthand, and legitimately get to meet or see some of these people, just walking down the halls, legitimately, there's a multi-millionaire walking down the hall just like everyone else, right? It's not some big nebulous thing, and it's easily it's attainable. But so the first, I guess, one of these is this conversation we had. So Funnel Hacking Live, just like most conferences, there's a door opening time where everyone kind of comes in and finds their chairs. And then there's, usually a half hour or so of people milling about and meeting. And Funnel Hacking Live, just because the people that attended they're a little bit different than most people, because it's built around a lot of excitement and all that kind of good stuff. So usually there's a fair amount of backlog of people waiting to get in. So this particular morning, I think it was the second or maybe the third day, because it's a 4-day conference. Second or third morning, we're out, getting in line to go in for the doors to open to the big conference room. There was about 5,000 people, and in our one little section of door, there's maybe 100 or so people that were there, and the 4 of us were sitting there, and it was definitely not the first day; it was the second day or the third. And this gal, and as you're just standing there, wasting 10, 15 minutes of waiting for the doors open, you chit chat with other people, because that is a large part of it. It is at its nature a marketing conference, and networking is part of that. And we were talking with this gal, and she's like, "Wow, that's really neat that you brought your kids and kind of going through that, which is not unusual, because people were impressed that we brought kids." And there were a couple other kids there, similar to age, and some younger, and some in later teenager years. But she goes. She was kind of complaining. She's like, "Oh, well, my son is still upstairs in the room," because there's a hotel there at the conference center. Is still upstairs asleep in the room. And at first, I didn't really think that much of it. It was about 8:15 in the morning, 8:30 in the morning, and my initial assumption was because this was in Orlando, right, East Coast, Eastern time, maybe they're from Washington or California or some other time zone where. For her body clock, it's 5:30 in the morning, or for her son, it's legitimately really early in the morning, or potentially even Hawaii or international somewhere where their body clock is completely jacked up. So it didn't really, faze me. I was just oh yeah, kind of wow, it's kind of, on one hand it's a bummer, but totally understandable if that's the case, right? But then she goes, yeah, he was up late playing video games, and that's where I was like, oh. And it was really kind of sad for me to hear, because here she has invested to bring her son, and I'm assuming, she didn't say how old he was, so I'm assuming late teenager or something of that nature, but she's invested money and time and resources to bring her son to this event with presumably the intent to expose him to, for the same reasons that we took Kai and Shay. But then she proceeded to allow or or not discourage or whatever the circumstance was, that he was up late and the priority for him was playing video games instead of, hey, we got an early morning tomorrow. Let's, get some dinner. Let's talk about what we learned today. And then we'll hit go to bed, and then we can get up and be ready for the day, so we can get down to the conference in time. And it's just that prioritization. So that, it really just got me thinking a lot about how do we, because to me, that's a self-imposed failure, which is the title of this podcast episode, is what are we doing to shoot ourselves in the foot that way? And certainly, she was responsible for doing some things, i.e. allowing her presumably teenage son to stay up late and play video games instead of saying, no, turn the video games off, like I'm taking your phone or whatever, if it was a laptop or if he brought his Xbox, I don't know, to the hotel, and say, no, that we are here for this. And why did you even allow that to happen? I'm paying for your ticket, or I've paid for this hotel and all this kind of stuff, and make it a priority and help impart that importance to her son. But there are things that we do all the time, consciously and subconsciously, that we shoot ourselves in the foot with, and in this example that I'm using is putting the prioritization of playing video games ahead of you're at this conference and with the intent of learning all this stuff, presumably to help in your business. And we didn't even get to the point of asking her, what her business was or what, about her son being there, because it was kind of just a downer point, because she realized how much of a kind of a disappointment it was that he wasn't there and ready to go, for the day to start. And we kind of I kind of gave that impression oh, that's a bummer. You shouldn't be missing this. You paid a lot of money to be here. And it's interesting because it's part of the self-imposed failure is the standards that we are setting for ourselves. It's the standards where we are setting and allowing for the people around us. Now, whether that's employees that work for you in your business, whether that's your own children, your own spouse, your own family members, it's these standards that you have set. You've set this bar, right? We can all understand and relate to that there is a bar has been set, a minimal acceptable mode of behavior or attitude, whatever that is in your organization or your example. And we choose whether to enforce it or not. And when we choose not to, that is what is self-imposed failure. That is what causes somebody to not meet that bar, to not meet that minimum expected behavior mark. And again, this could be in your family. This could be with your children, whether they're learning to, you're potty training them and they're learning to use the toilet and get out of the diapers, right? You set a minimum standard of, hey, when you feel you have to go to the bathroom, you let me know and I'm going to take you to the toilet and we're going to go through this process and learn, instead of just oh yeah, I had to go to the bathroom, so I just, went in my diaper like I always did. There's a minimum accepted standard, and as you continue to allow that to happen, then there's no change that ever gets made and there's no improvement, and then the bar just magically, gets lowered, right? As you continue to go through that. And then, that's your simple example, right? With potty training your toddler or something. But this is easily applicable to your business, to the people that you are in charge of, that you are supposedly leading. If that is you, a business owner, department head, supervisor, you have set a minimum standard. And as you continue to not enforce that standard and not allow people the opportunity to meet that standard, then that bar will just keep getting lower and lower and lower. And as other people see that bar getting lower and lower and lower, then the bar just falls to the ground, and then there's no more standard other than anarchy and people doing whatever they want. Now, it would be easy for our kids, Kai and Shay, to see that, because they were there and they heard her say this. It would be easier for them to say, oh, well, that gal's teenage son got to sleep in, and got to stay up late playing video games. But that's not the standard in our house. That's not the standard that I have set for a pattern of expectation, especially in this scenario, being at Funnel Hacking Live and investing the resources and time and money to be there and learn beyond just the amazing positive gain, right? Because the expenditure of resources and time and energy, that's kind of a negative push, right? This is why you should do it, because we have expended all these resources. The positive draw is why you should show up and be on time, is because this is the amazing set of speakers that we've got. And these are all the things that we're going to learn about today. And to be in that environment, that's what should be drawing you there. And it was this interesting, as she said that, I think it kind of dawned on her that not only had she failed to set that standard of expectation in her son's behavior of being there because of the expenditure of resources and whatnot, she had failed to impart the draw of it. Like, why is it important for us to be here? Why are we here? These are like, look at this, schedule of speakers that are along today. And this first one that's speaking, like, boom, we got to be down there to see this and all those types of things, which is different than what we had done with our boys, is really try to focus on the, like, this is why we're here. Not like, you're going to show up because I paid for your ticket to be here, right? That's one way to quote unquote motivate, but that's not a way to inspire, and that's not a way to actually affect change and a positive attitude in your people, right? Because you can either say, you're going to show up because I'm paying your check, like, oh, okay, and people will show up at the bare minimum to whatever it takes to get that paycheck. Versus if you say, hey, I really need you here at 8 o'clock every morning, like we've agreed on, because we've got these clients and XYZ, right? You have a reason for that positive of, I need this to happen in order for us to be successful, not because I've paid you to be here at 8 o'clock, and if you don't, I'm going to start, docking your pay or cutting your hours or anything like that. You create a sense of accomplishment and expectation in the performance in order to reach and achieve a goal in your business, if that makes sense, right? So it's really about focusing on the positive draw versus the negative stick. And this all kind of goes back to that self-imposed failure of not doing that. And that's what I'm kind of referring to with the whole concept of self-imposed failure, if that makes sense. So I wanted to really kind of get you thinking about what are areas, as I usually ask in a lot of my podcasts, what are areas that you can reflect on of where am I allowing the bar to be lowered in my organization by me not upholding the standards, i.e., where am I allowing self-imposed failure? I'm imposing failure on myself by not enforcing the standards, by not making sure everyone is on board with our goals, with our intentions, with our mission statements and vision statements of our company. And these are all self-imposed failures that ultimately, hey, you will shoot yourself in the foot with them, whether it be personally, in your community, in your church, in your softball team, as I use the example a lot, or in your business. So that is something I would encourage you. How can you identify those areas, and what little tweaks can you do to transition into, instead of self-imposed failure, kind of a self-imposed success? Like, put these breakers in place that really propel people to success and help them see that vision and see your vision and what you can do as the leader to make that happen. That makes sense. I hope it does. Thank you again for joining me. Like I said, I think this should be a pretty cool week of podcasts that we've got coming up. I'm hoping that you're going to find a lot of benefit from them, because we paid a lot of money to be in the room, and we got to hear from some absolutely phenomenal speakers. So I hope you enjoy that coming up, and be sure to tune in and let me know what you think. Likes, comments, subscribes, and shares are always fantastic. I really appreciate you hanging out with me today. No matter where you're at in the world, have a fantastic afternoon. Bye.